In this video, we will be discussing the major world religion of Hinduism. Now, before we get started, I want to show you a couple of images and ask, what do these images remind you of? Maybe the thing that came to your mind was the movie Avatar. Now, the reason I start with this is because you may think that you know very little about Hinduism, but in fact, if you've seen the movie Avatar, chances are you actually know a fair amount about Hinduism. Even the word avatar is actually a Hindu word. It refers to a Hindu god that has come to Earth in bodily form.
So we'll return to Avatar a few more times later in the video.
So as a result of watching this video, you should be able to answer three big questions. One, what are the origins of Hinduism and how did it spread? Two, what are the beliefs, traditions, and customs of Hinduism? And three, we're going to look at the caste system and see what role did it play in Indian society. So, what are the origins of Hinduism and how did it spread? Hinduism is the third largest religion in the world today, behind Christianity and Islam. It is predominantly practiced in the modern day country of India. So today 80% of Indians are Hindu. Here you can see a world map showing the concentrations of Hindus. Notice here in South America you have a pocket of Hindus, and that is a result of, we'll talk about this in a later video, in the 19th and 20th century migration from India to Guyana. The reason why so many Indians live in Guyana is because they were both British colonies and many indentured servants would be sent from India to Guyana. So if you recall, one of the very first things we said about India, and that underlies everything that when we talk about India, is its diversity. And Hinduism is an exceptionally diverse religion. Hinduism is actually a term that was imposed upon the religion by the British, who were essentially trying to identify the various religious practices that were being performed by the Indian people. And so Hinduism is a broad term consisting of a diverse set of beliefs and practices. Now, Hinduism is called the oldest living religion. Again, there have been religions dating all the way back to the Paleolithic era. Hunter-gatherers had various religious traditions, but this is one of the oldest living or lasting religious traditions that's still widely practiced in the world. Hinduism, in contrast to every other major world religions that we will study, Judaism, Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, Hinduism has no historical founder and no clear starting point. Most historians believe that Hinduism started as a result of Aryan migration, where pastoral nomadic people moved into India around 1500 BCE. The Aryans brought with them these Vedas, and what the Vedas are these oral prayer hymns. They sound a little bit like this. So these priests would perform these prayer hymns at the same time that they would light these sacred fires, and they were all part of these ritual practices that were performed by these Aryans. So these prayers became known as the Vedas, these oral prayer hymns that were maintained and performed exclusively by the Brahmins. And the Brahmins, as we'll find out later, are basically the upper tier of what will become Hindu society, but at the time was just known as the Vedic religions or the Vedic traditions. Now, in addition to the Vedas, they also were able to control these sacred fire rituals where they would engage in sacrifice of various animals. But criticism over time emerged because the Brahmins basically had exclusive power over the religion. They were the only ones who could perform the prayer hymns. They were the only ones that had control over these sacred fires. And so there was internal criticism. The religion over time evolved, and as a result, there's a number of holy texts that are associated with it. The Upanishads is one of those holy texts. There were also external criticisms, which eventually would lead to splits. For instance, as we'll study later, Buddhism evolved out of the Hindu tradition, and so too did Jainism. So as you watch this particular video clip, be focused on what happens to Hinduism, which will be shaded in the red color. Where does it start? How does it spread? And then eventually, how does that compare to Christianity, Islam, and Buddhism? So here we see the oldest religious tradition, Hinduism, starting in that region. What was the Indus River Valley civilization? Here you can see it spreading down into the Indian subcontinent. Abraham is born in Ur, founder of the religion of Judaism. Now, Hinduism is going to spread down into Southeast Asia. You can see Cambodia, Laos, Vietnam, Thailand. Buddha, around 600 BCE, is born in northern India. Buddhism is going to spread rapidly across India as a result of conversion by the Emperor Ashoka during the Mauryan Empire. Now, Jesus is crucified in the Roman Empire. Eventually, Christianity is going to spread across the Roman Empire. 600 CE, Muhammad is born in Mecca, spreads Islam across the Middle East, North Africa, Spain. Notice Hinduism still in India, and those parts of Hinduism that were down in Southeast Asia are now being pushed out essentially by a religion that's the religion of Buddhism, which is now moving into Southeast Asia. So the video basically stops around 1000 CE, but this essentially would still be pretty close to what the map looks like today, with Hinduism sort of deeply rooted in the Indian subcontinent and really found nowhere else. Now, why? Why did Hinduism not spread, whereas other religions like Islam and Christianity and Buddhism spread very rapidly? Well, a couple reasons. One, Hinduism is not a missionary religion. The Hindus don't actively seek converts. You're essentially born into Hinduism in much the same way that you're born into the religion of Judaism, and there's far less conversion in those two religions. And now Hinduism spread was essentially limited to India and Southeast Asia, and many of the Hindu temples in Southeast Asia, for instance, this is Angkor Wat in modern-day Cambodia, and you can see it was at one point a Hindu temple. Eventually it gets converted into a Buddhist temple. So what are the beliefs, traditions, and customs of Hindus? When it comes to gods, Hindus worship multiple gods. There are said to be
millions of
different gods that Hindus worship. Now, the three primary gods they worship are Brahma, who is the creator god, Vishnu, who is the preserver god, and Shiva, who is the destroyer god. All of these gods are connected to one universal energy force known as the Brahman, and this connects everyone and everything. So many Hindus believe that all the gods, all people, all everything are connected to this universal source of power called the Brahman. And don't get that confused with Brahma, the creator god. If you've seen the movie Avatar, this concept plays out in the movie. So here's two quotes. There is a network of energy that flows through all living things. There is a presence infinite and everywhere. That first quote is from the movie Avatar, where those avatars are able to plug into that universal energy source. And then there is a presence infinite and everywhere is from the Upanishads. It's a Hindu holy text describing this concept of Brahman. So if you have seen the movie again, this can help you understand that notion of the universal energy force. The closest thing to it in another tradition is probably the Tao or the Way in Taoism. It's this belief in this universal energy. Now, this begs the question, are Hindus monotheists or polytheists? And there's really no answer to this question. Certainly they do worship multiple gods, but they believe that all those gods are part of one universal energy source, and therefore there's no real answer to this question. Now, in terms of Hindu beliefs, Hindus believe in reincarnation, something they refer to as samsara. Now, how reincarnation works is we're going to need a soul. Let's pick the godfather of soul, James Brown. So James Brown lived his life. James Brown, God rest his soul, died. And at death, what Hindus believe is that the soul then is reborn into another physical form. And so reincarnation, this continuous cycle in which the soul, and the name for the soul, what they refer to as the Atman, is then reborn over and over again into other physical forms. Now, at death, Hindus believe the soul is carried into a new physical body, which can be human. It can be a non-human form. For instance, they believe that certain animals possess Atman. It can be a divine being, so you could be reborn into a god. You could be reborn a cow. Now, this process is a continuous process where the soul is born, dies, and then experiences rebirth over and over again until that soul or that Atman achieves moksha. Moksha is the goal of Hinduism. It's the release from this continuous cycle of reincarnation. Another example of how this plays out in the movie, right? Where the humans can take their souls and essentially transmit those souls into the avatar body. So one life ends, another begins is from the movie Avatar. It's Jake Sully. And then the soul passes into another body at death is from the Bhagavad Gita describing reincarnation. Hindus also believe in karma, and karma is what every action has a reaction either immediately or some point in the future. Another way to think about karma is what goes around comes around. So if you engage in good or virtuous actions, you will receive good or virtuous responses either during your lifetime or in future lifetimes. Your Atman or your soul will receive good responses. Now, if you perform bad actions during your lifetime and you get good bad karma, your soul, your Atman, will then have bad responses at some point in the future. So karma operates not only in the present lifetime, but also across future lifetimes after rebirth, and it can also play a factor in determining the station in life to which you are reborn. So to get good karma, you have to fulfill your dharma or your duty, your role in the caste system. And so this is a great example of how religion intersects with social status, social hierarchy. And so in the next video, we will get deeper on what exactly this caste system is all about. So after watching this video, you should be able to answer these two big questions. What are the origins of Hinduism and how did it spread? And what are the beliefs, traditions, and customs of Hinduism? Thanks for watching.